Tonight is part 1 of 2 of applications of equations. Tonight we're going to cover the first 3 objectives here, and then you'll get another video tomorrow night that will cover the rest of the objectives. To begin with, we're just going to translate some verbal phrases to algebraic expressions or equations. And the first one is a uniform motion question or phrase, excuse me. It says the velocity of an object equals, so velocity equals the distance traveled divided by the time required. So I'm going to use a d for distance and a t for time. Distance divided by time. The second one is an investment kind of question, but really it's just addition and subtraction related. It says a total of $4,000 is invested, some in stocks and some in bonds. If the amount invested in stocks is X, express the amount invested in bonds in terms of X. So the amount invested in stocks is X. If I invest the rest of it in bonds, I know that 4,000 minus X is what I've invested in the bonds. Alright, allowing X to be a number, says the number 3 times as large as X is, and that would be 3X, 3 times as large. The second one, the number 4 less than X, and that would be X minus 4. And that's the one that confuses people most. You have to take 4 away from the X and not have it 4 minus X. The third, the number that exceeds X by 5 is X plus 4. And last, the number that when added to X gives 4 is equal to 4 minus X. Okay, next we have an investment problem that we're going to solve. It says a total of $18,000 is invested, some in stocks and some in bonds. If the amount invested in bonds is half that invested in stocks, how much is invested in each category? So first step, what are we trying to find? Well, we're trying to find how much is invested in each category, and we know that that has to total $18,000. Secondly, we need to get some variables involved. And so if we let X equal the amount invested in stocks, then I know that $18,000 minus X is what I've invested in bonds. Alright, now using some additional information from our problem, we're going to write an equation using these 2 expressions. So it says the amount invested in bonds is or equals half what's invested in stocks. So our equation will look like this. 18,000 minus X, that's the amount in bonds, equals half X, that's the amount for stocks. And now all I have left to do is solve this equation for X. First, adding X to both sides, I get 18,000 equals 3 halves X. And to get rid of the 3 halves, I multiply each side by the reciprocal of the 3 halves, which is 2/3. And so that gives me 12,000 equals X. So now referring back to the question they really wanted me to answer, how much is invested in each category? So I need to make sure that I state what's invested in each category. And that's $12,000 in stocks and the remaining in bonds, which would be $6,000 to make the total investment of $18,000. Next we have an interest problem. I need to remind you of the simple interest formula. I equals PRT. Also reminding you that I stands for interest. The P stands for principal, which is the amount you borrow or invest. R stands for your rate. And T stands for the time in years. Okay, so looking at our question, suppose that Noah borrows $500 for 6 months at a simple interest rate of 9% per annum. That just means per year. What is the interest Noah will be charged on this loan? And how much will he owe after 6 months? Okay, so using our simple interest formula to calculate how much interest she will have to pay, or he will have to pay, on the $500 amount that he borrowed. So I is equal to the principal, which was $500, times the rate. Now it's given as a percentage. We need to make sure we make that into a decimal. Times the time, which needs to be in years. So 6 months would be half of a year. When I multiply those three things together, I get an interest of $22.50. So then in 6 months, Noah will not only owe what he borrowed, but also $22.50 in interest, which gives us a total of $522.50. Next, financial planning for the future. Esther has $70,000 to invest and requires an overall rate of return of 9% on her investment. So she can invest safely in an insured certificate of deposit, but that only pays 8%. To obtain 9%, she decides to invest some of her money in non-insured corporate bonds, paying 12%. How much should she place in each investment to achieve her goals? This question is asking for $2 amounts: the principal to invest in corporate bonds and the principal to invest in the certificate of deposit. So once again, we need to state some variables. Let's let X represent the amount that she will invest in the bond, which means the leftover will be invested in the certificate of deposit. So that means that $70,000 minus what she puts in the bonds is equal to, and for short, I'm going to say CD. The rate on the CD is 9%. The rate on the bond is 12%. And I know that she wants a total rate of return of 9%. And since the total return rate is 9%, 9% of 70,000 equals 6,300. So I must have the equation 0.12 times X, representing the bond, added to 0.08 times 70,000 minus X, representing the CD, and those two together, those investments have to equal $6,300. So now all that remains is to solve this equation. solve this equation, excuse me. And I'm going to go to a new slide to do that because I'm running out of room. Okay, so first distributing the 0.08 to the parentheses, 70,000 minus X, gives us this result. 0.12X plus 5,600 minus 0.08X equals 6,300. Next, I'm going to move this 5,600 to the other side by subtraction, and I'm also going to put together my like terms, the 0.12X and the minus 0.08X, and that gives me 0.04X equals $700. And finally, dividing by the 0.04, I get X is equal to 17,500. And remember that X represented our bonds. So to figure out how much she should invest in the CD, I need to take $70,000 and subtract off what we invested in the bond, and that gives me a remaining total of $52,500 that she should invest in the CD. So for our final answer, Esther should invest $17,500 in the bond and $52,500 in the CD. And that's the last of the video for tonight. Tomorrow night we'll cover a couple other different kind of word problems.